Welcome to our Saturday Simulcast, joined by Tom Dienhart. I'm Alan Karpik, and good to be back in front of Tom again. Tom has been a busy man with all the fall camp coverage. We'll get into that shortly. I want to thank our sponsor, the Union Club Hotel and the Boiler Up Bar, 811 Bistro. And a reminder too, if you like our podcast or you like our Zooms, why don't you think about subscribing to goldenblack.com? We actually have a website that people like that you can read all of Tom's work. You can talk about it with your friends on Knucklehead Central. We also have an agreement with the Boilermaker Alliance. You join the Boilermaker Alliance, you can be a member of goldenblack.com as well. So there's a lot of information about that on the site. So anyway, Tom, it has been busy, and we're off into the Ryan Walters era has launched. And we're going to start with this, and then we'll talk a little Washington, Oregon, and what the Big Ten is going to look like, which is nutty talk, but crazy. But like you said, the change is the only constant. But talk about what you've kind of gleaned from your somewhat limited access to practice, but your chances to talk to coaches and some players this week.
Yeah, very limited access, Alan. Everybody always asks me, so what do you think?
Yeah.
Which is natural, right? But, honestly, number one, Alan, they're not in full pads, so
yeah,
it really isn't football, right? And number two, we're only there for maybe 5 to 7 periods, maybe 20 or 30 minutes, first 4 practices. And they're only going through stretching drills and other individual drills and whatnot. So hitting the sled, throwing passes against air. So again, I wish I could tell you more, but it's going to be like that throughout camp, Alan. They're going to have some scrimmages we're not going to be able to go to, although Jeff Brom was the same way with scrimmages. One thing that was different with Brom was he would open up some of these early fall practice, like the first week or so, to anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody could show up and watch a practice the first week. And but this is what it was like in the spring too. So this sort of carryovers that. But yeah, we're going to have to wait and see. Now, just eyeballing guys, I think they have gotten bigger. I think that's obvious, especially on the defensive line. Bringing in those 3 SEC players, I think the line has a chance to be pretty solid, Alan. A lot of veterans as well, and we know about the outside linebackers. Kevin Kane sort of affirmed what we thought, that probably is the strongest position on defense. And offensively, Alan, I think the offense, at least in my mind, maybe there are fewer questions. I know the line's got to get sorted out. But I tell you what, there's a lot of skill, a lot of potential with the quarterback, maybe the best running back room since the early Brom era when they had like Tario Fuller and Richie Worship and then DJ Knox. So I think there's some potential on offense. So we're getting closer to September 2nd, Fresno State game. But again, we're probably I'm not going to really, like everybody else, get a real feel, obviously, from what this team is going to be until I see him on that high noon Eastern time on the 2nd.
Yeah, you did get a chance. You got a head on a swivel during your 25 or 30 minutes there. I'm amazed at what you glean. You saw the offensive line up. I thought that was interesting yesterday. Some names that, again, and we know Gus Hartwig, for example, is going to be out probably maybe till October. But that's what's really interesting. You had Josh Kaltenberger in there and some others. Anything surprise you on that? And again, I understand it is a snapshot in time. Somebody might not have got their shoes tied right and didn't get a chance to line up. So I get that. But any other surprises on the O-line or anything there?
I saw that walking out practice, and I probably wasn't supposed to see that.
Yeah, okay.
Because they're just starting with 11-on-11 work. That was a line, at least the first line that was out there. Like you said, maybe somebody just had their shoe untied and somebody else had to for them. So again, hopefully nobody takes everything for gospel. Just trying to provide what I see, and it probably gives you a little semblance of a snapshot to a degree. But no real surprises on the line. I thought maybe a guy like Jalen Grant would be snapping the ball instead of Josh Kaltenberger. But, we knew the tackles were going to be Musa and Bo. Preston Nichols, heard good things about him. A UNLV transfers, played a lot of football at a guard spot too. So, no real surprises. I don't think personnel-wise. I don't expect any real surprises. Yeah. You talked about players missing. Gus Hartwig. Yeah, that's the $64,000 question. How long is Gus going to be out? I feel pretty confident saying he's not going to play in the opener.
Yeah.
How deep is this going to go, Alan? Till September 30th. The Illinois game is going to go into October. I just don't know. He hurt that knee in November last year against Northwestern. A couple other guys have not really been participants fully. In addition to Gus, of course, Garrett Miller coming off that knee injury. Real no sense in putting him out there to expose him. Maybe I'm the most talented player on that offense.
Yeah.
Best pro prospect on that offense. People seem to forget about Garrett Miller, I think. The tight ends overall, I think, could be very good. A couple other guys, DeMarzio Lewis has been a little bit limited, like Garrett Miller. He missed last year with a knee injury, suffered in training camp.
Yeah.
It was funny. We were at those practices when that happened. So yeah, there's those are maybe the key guys. There's been some more fringe guys that have been participants: Ethan Cole, Andre Oben, Zach Richards. But guys that don't figure in prominently. But as far as key guys who figure in prominently, those are probably the key guys. And I heard, Alan, that the one of their transfer receivers from Florida Atlantic, Jamal Idrine, had gotten hurt the other day. Not sure the extent of that injury. It was not a practice on Friday. I'll see if he's there today, but he's a guy I think that they're going to count on. Alan is a big receiver who again could be a real key X factor on this unit. So we'll have to stay tuned and see if we learn anything about his injury and the extent of it.
Now, you've watched a lot of football practices in many, many places around the country, and this is an unfair question because of the time, but do you get any, you watched Ryan Walters in this spring as well. We see pictures of Ryan out throwing passes because, that's the early part of practice. Get any sense to just from an organizational standpoint, do they do anything at all differently, or is this kind of what you've seen in other coaches and other practices? And again, understanding that you're seeing the first 30, 35 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe it's that energy and that enthusiasm level.
Yeah,
maybe that's a little more accentuated than some of that I've seen displayed at other practices over the years. So, you get just good energy, especially from Sam Carter, the cornerbacks coach, and Corey Patterson, the wide receivers coach. They seem to be your juice coaches, if you will. Yeah. And Sam Carter's really a character. And, the line coaches, Marcus Johnson on offense and Brick Haley on defense. I tell you who I'm impressed with. A couple of young coaches, Joe Deneen, the outside linebackers coach, who's in his 20s, and Grant O'Brien, the safeties coach. Grant O'Brien, I think, talking to Kevin Kane yesterday, man, the eyes in the sky in the press box next for Kevin Kane, who's going to call the defense from the field. He's a good recruiter, a bright young mind with it looks like he could be on the fast track to big things maybe down the road. And Kevin Kane too, Al. I tell you what, Kevin Kane, I love talking to Kevin Kane. He's a very impressive man. He really strikes me as a kind of a future head coach. And I know I'm pulling that just from my brief interactions over the last 6, 7, 8 months with him, but he certainly carries himself like a head coach. Sounds like a head coach, talks like a head coach, comes off as being very smart as well. And he's got a nice resume. He's already built up. Alan, his next step, I think, he's the next Ryan Walters off this staff. I think he's the guy on this staff that's going to be the head coach next. Is Kevin Kane. Ryan realizes that. I think he's going to give him this opportunity to run the defense because Ryan got that opportunity. Right. Missouri and then at Illinois. So Kevin Kane's a guy I think is very smart. And I tell you what, last thing real quick on Kevin Kane. Talked to him the other day. It was kind of interesting. This defense is supposedly very unique, Al, and nobody else in the country does it. I'm sure Illinois is going to run it still with Aaron Henry, but still, it's a very unique defense. He sort of compared it to teams having to prepare for like the Navy triple option offense. It's something you don't see anywhere else. It takes a while to prepare for it. All of a sudden, you're playing these defense 3-4-4-3, and all of a sudden, boom, you got this unique defense that nobody else does, and schools have to prepare for that. So it's supposed to be very unique and different, and hopefully, cause opponents a lot of issues trying to adjust to it and get used to it and play against it.
Yeah, storylines galore heading into that September 2nd opener against Fresno State. All right, I know you got to rehash the issue this week on the stadium
Mhm.
Confident it's going to be done, and in fact, it's going to be done. They're going to play
It's going to be
football
done.
stadium, but it's all of us pocket construction people, of which I've been there 2 or 3 times in the last month. I know nothing what I'm seeing, except for it looks like there's a lot of work to be done. I know Mike Babinski had said, and we'd reported boiling over about getting the crane off there. I think that's all on schedule. They haven't had much rain here. There are no weather issues, though I was gone a lot last week, but it sounds like everything is moving forward. I really liked your Hudson Card feature this past week as well. And I encourage folks, if you haven't read it, go back and read it. But just what was your, you're always good at talking to parents and other people around Hudson. What's your sense? Leadership is huge in this deal. You've talked a little bit about him being kind of a quiet guy, at least from what you can tell. But what was your sense of just the family's excitement and being in West Lafayette, considering they obviously were UT fans, and that didn't work out quite to the level that they wanted to, but just the sense that you got talking to that family.
Yeah, real quick too on the stadium. I talked to Ken Halpin.
Yeah.
Didn't anticipate doing a story out of it. He was okay with it, but kind of give people a sense of where they're at just once again. And then I'm going to have a story on the Tiller Tunnel too. More the honoring. I talked to Tim House.
Yeah.
And how they're going to honor Tiller and other people as well. So a lot of excitement there. But yeah, Hudson Card. Yeah, I talked to Doug and Cindy Card, his mom and dad, his high school coach, some others around him, and talked to Hudson for a while, obviously, too, Alan. I was thinking this summer, I said, you know what? Nobody's really done a big Hudson Card story. This guy's going to be the face of the program. I didn't know anything about him at all, beyond the superficial stuff. So, again, my 1 hour interaction, I can't extrapolate. I know everything about somebody, but he seems like the kind of guy you'd want your daughter to date.
Yeah.
He's a good-looking guy. He's I think religion's important to him. He seems grounded. He does seem humble. Quick to smile.
Yeah.
Low key. That's just his personality. And it seems like he has a nice family, Alan. He sort of was the baby.
Yeah.
He had 2 older kids, a 32-year-old sister and a 31-year-old brother. And then there's Hudson, who's just turned 22. Yeah. It's kind of funny. His dad told me, I had 2 chances to do this. Raising a boy in sports and whatnot. So his dad, successful businessman in waste management.
Yeah,
that made me laugh. But I got the sense they've done well. They lived in Houston until Hudson was 8th grade. They moved up to Austin, where they had a lake house, Lake Travis, and just typical father-son stuff. Anybody who raised a boy in sports.
Yeah,
all of those same stories we all connect to, and they seem like very loving parents, and they're native Texans too. And you're right, it didn't work out in Austin for them, but Quinn Ewers was a 5-star recruit. Manning coaching change. Tom Herman and Steve Sarkisian. Sometimes things don't work out in life, but I really think this happened. It seemed like it happened so long ago. They got Hudson Card. I think people forget how good this guy really may be.
Yeah.
I think he's kind of got shoved off to the side here, but Purdue may have gotten, I guess what I'm trying to say is Purdue may have gotten a real steal here. The staff loves him, the players love him. I don't think they're going to disparage him, but he can throw, he can run. Can he lead? I guess time will tell. And Ryan Walters talked about this after the first practice, the need to learn how we deal with adversity, Alan. Nobody knows. There's a point in every game. There's a point in every season where everything's falling down around you. It seems like there's no way out. You're going, oh my God, man, this is a disaster. What's going to happen? And how do you respond? Do you keep your poise? Do you adjust? Do you stay calm in the face of fire? Those are just things we don't know. So we'll find out probably every game. Like I said, there's adversity. Fresno State, Jeff Tedford, man. I know they got their questions at quarterback, but Jeff Tedford's a heck of a coach. It was Aaron Rodgers' coach at Cal, and very, very sage coach. So he's had months to prepare too. So that's going to be a heck of a test right out of the gate, Alan.
Yeah, no doubt. And the news of the day yesterday was this Tom Dienhart be going to Eugene, Oregon, and to Seattle here. Maybe
by the way.
And have you been both of those stadiums in your professional travel?
Yeah, I've been out to Eugene and I've been to Corvallis a lot too. Although New Orleans it's not coming. Yeah, University of Washington. Yeah, it's I love the University of Washington for a lot of reasons. I always thought, Alan, of all the Pac-10, Pac-12 schools, there's always USC. Washington always reminded me of being most Big Ten like.
Yeah.
A big public institution, great fan support, great football tradition, Alan. I mean, you go back to the Sunny Six Killer days when we played Purdue. I remember when Purdue had that 4-game series with them.
Right.
From 87 and 90, Purdue got beat all 4 times, but Mark Brunell and those guys were on the Huskies. That's when they were, they really got rolling there with Steve Entman. They won a national title in 91. But anyway, yeah, well, I mean, hey, man, changes happen. I'm excited with Washington and Oregon. And again, Eugene's a great town and Hudson Stadium and whatnot. We all know that. That's ever since Joey Harrington and last 22 years, they really became relevant. So it's exciting. Now, where's it all going to end? I guess that's my question. Where's it all going to end? They're at 18. They're going to get to 20. Are they going to sit out and try to get Virginia and North Carolina to get to 20? Or are they going to maybe get Cal and Stanford one day? I don't know. What's the SEC going to do, Alan?
Yeah.
I don't know. And they got a lot to figure out. This is going to happen next year.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
Only 4 schools.
You have to redo all the schedules now, obviously.
Are you going to go back to divisions, Alan?
Yeah.
Are you going to have 6-team divisions? I don't know, but you're not going 1 through 18, are you?
Yeah.
I don't know. So there's just a lot of questions. And a lot of these administrators on Northwestern Avenue and Champaign and East Lansing and Iowa City, they've got a lot to figure out logistically here. So is the Big Ten office in suburban Chicago. So discombobulating times, exciting times, the great unknown. Here we go. We're not turning back, Alan. Believe me, I wish it was 1985 and I was still sitting in Mackey Arena working with you and Barb Brink and Jim Bridges, fighting hometowners for Chet Clodfelter, the pole vaulter. But it's not 1985 anymore.
Yeah.
Things always move on. They're always going to change. They say change or perish. We don't have to like it. We have to accept it. So crazy times. Just keep your seatbelt buckled, right?
Yeah. And Brian wrote a good piece yesterday on the site. It was interesting, and it's certainly a viewpoint of not sure. There is that uncertainty. You don't know whether, Notre Dame's still sitting out there. And of course, the Virginia, North Carolina discussion, whether that is. And what's so interesting about this is driving home. I was in Northern Michigan this week. Driving home yesterday, the first hour or so of sports talk with Rick Neuheisel and others, they thought it was going the other direction, and it changed again. So there's obviously, they thought maybe Washington and Oregon were going to stay put. That changed, obviously, between Grand Rapids and St. Joe, Michigan, I think, for me. And I think that's just a sign of we just best. It's not our world anymore. It's a different deal. And I'm with you on the Washington, Oregon. I understand, and Brian's point is certainly valid about do they. Could you have waited on them? Maybe. We don't know all the details. Obviously, they're going to take a less share. The piece of the pie is going to be divided up differently. I get all that. It's just an interesting time. And even in discussions with Mike Babinski in the last few weeks, he just said, we just head on a swivel. You just got to be nimble and ready to move. And you keep piling another thing, from NIL, transfer portal, COVID, another, 4 new teams in the league. All part of the way things work. So
lots going on here the last few years. It's a quicker side. Purdue, I think, goes to Oregon State next year.
Right. That's right. Opens the season, right?
It's obvious.
Or it's a September game. That's right.
But so much change. And you talked about going back to the COVID and the things the sports kind of had to go through, and also subjected itself. They're creating this money grab, if you will, I guess.
Yep.
Bigger's better, bigger's more money. If there was ever any doubt, certainly it's a race now. This is all about the almighty dollar, And most everything in life typically gets back to the almighty dollar. But man, this notion of the quaint student athlete and whatnot, again, I think too, Al, not to get off on a tangent, but I think Brian alluded to this too, but I think these schools are getting ready for the day where they got to share revenue with players. And you're going to need as much money as you can get, because that day's coming. These collectives may be gone in a couple of years, and revenue sharing may be the new norm, where this money is going to start coming out of the schools' coffers. It's not going to be raised by these independent collectives. So I think there's probably an eye toward that, maybe to a degree, because I do think that day is coming. They're going to have to start sharing revenue, or maybe they become employees. I don't know how it's going to look. That's way above my expertise level, but it seems like we're chugging, the train's chugging toward that destination.
I think it's a fascinating study in administration and management, just being able to plan ahead. And I think you're exactly right. They are going, have to be looking at that down the road at 3 to 4 years of somehow, how are we going to do this? How are we going to pay for this? How's this going to work? How are we going to compete at Purdue, for example? Again, how are you going to stay competitive financially? Going to be interesting to watch. But what we are going to let you do is get off to practice today. We will have our part 2 of this recording. Brian Neubert will join us. We decided to split it up this week because Brian will be covering the men's basketball scrimmage and the alumni game. There'll be some things to talk about that. So in a shake of a lamb's tail, I don't know what word I want to use, but what about next thing you'll see is Brian Neubert joining us for the next segment. Tom, enjoy practice day. Great work so far. We appreciate it, and we'll look forward to our second part of Saturday Simulcast, which may not air till Sunday, but who's counting? And we'll look forward to that. So take care. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Brian Neubert needs no introduction, joins us after Tom's segment, Tom Dienhart's segment on a little bit of football. We're going to talk inter-squad scrimmage and alumni weekend, maybe a little Purdue, with Washington and Oregon as well. Brian wrote an excellent piece on the site last night or yesterday afternoon when the news came down, that being Friday afternoon, I should say. Brian, at first, this New Year's, great. I thought a really impressive crowd. The lower arena full, a good crowd upstairs. Luckily, it was 77 degrees, so the arena wasn't too warm, but it was a good show, so to speak, at least the way I looked at it. What did you see in the inter-squad scrimmage portion of today's proceedings?
It was warmer on the floor than I thought.
Yes, it was. I was down there with you for a bit. It was definitely warmer down there.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know if I saw anything that I haven't seen all summer, and half a dozen practices I've probably been to. It's just different without Zach Edey, because obviously he has his fingerprints over everything Purdue does at both ends of the floor this season. So that's why I've kind of said that this European trip, doesn't really come at a great time, because you prefer to make these trips when you're young, when you're new, and when you're reinventing yourself. And Purdue's got some new pieces, obviously, they need to onboard, but by and large, this is, a plug and play sort of team. I mean, they're really experienced, they're really established, they're experienced together. You do have a couple of freshmen or redshirt freshmen, moving into potential roles here,
right,
or definitely moving into roles. You have some guys whose roles are going to be a little different. But by and large, it's you would have preferred to have had this 2 years ago. There was a pandemic, and then if you could have had it last year, but everybody was hurt. So you take it when you can get it, and that's right now. So Purdue will be different. Trey Kaufman, Ryan, and Caleb First in the front court. I think that's kind of what you're looking at in Europe, because First is going to be playing more center or playing center. Kaufman Wren's going to be playing more forward. That's kind of nuanced, but I think long story short is that it's symbolic of Trey Kaufman Wren's, presumed ascension here into one of Purdue's better players. And if you ask me, probably something that puts Caleb First in a better position to be successful, too, because I think he's better in some of the actions he'll run at center as opposed to a lot of what he had to do with the four. There are questions. Spacing offensively with Trey Kaufman and Zach Edey next to one another won't be an issue in Europe because there's no Zach Edey. Kaufman-Renn is going to have to prove he can stay in front of people defensively. That's the reason that things change now and they weren't this way a year ago, and so on and so forth. But I think what Braden Smith is, what Fletcher Lawyer is. Those guys can get better. Does Europe tell you what you need to know there? No. Shooting, Purdue needs to shoot better. This is not predictive of anything. Whatever happens in Europe is not predictive of anything to come. They're using different They're using different balls. They're using FIBA rules, and the level of competition is not, as far as I know. I mean, I don't think this is.
Yeah, it's hard to know for sure.
Yeah, I don't even know who they're. I mean, I don't think they. I'm not sure they know in terms of the caliber of competition.
No, they don't. Yeah,
you could shoot 85% from three in these 4 games, and I wouldn't make much of it. They could shoot 10% from three in these 4 games, and I wouldn't make much of it. I just don't think it's. I just don't think that's a question that can get answered until, December, November, that sort of thing.
Yeah, you look at certainly from a onlooker standpoint, you pay attention to Lance Jones and Miles Colvin, Camden Heide, even Brian Waddell, who did play a little bit early on last year, but guys that have made some strides are interesting to watch. Your impressions of those guys. I mean, Heide had a double-digit rebounds. Matt Painter talked about the fact he likes the way he rebounds. Lance Jones appeared active to me. That's a very nebulous term when I'm watching the game and talking to people kind of at the same time. But what did you see out of those 4 guys in terms of, and again, I understand this is one snapshot of many times that you've had a chance to see most of these guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one thing about all those guys is they're going to have their roles this year are going to be to play off Zach Edey.
Yeah.
Again, when there's no Zach Edey, it's not really relevant context. The thing I liked about Lance Jones today is he made his spot up threes. I think he was 3 for 6, and that's going to be different for him because he comes from Southern Illinois where he was a shot creator, and now he's that 4th, 5th option that people are going to give space to. He's going to have to make enough of those shots off ball reversals and inside out stuff to make people guard him and put himself in position to use his quickness a little bit to go past people maybe, but I don't know if he's necessarily that true point guard that I think, people might think he is, but I think he's got some of the physical characteristics you need there. He's certainly got the defensive mentality to make this more of a complete team. I think he fills a gap there that, needed to be filled. Camden Heide is, the thing I always say about Heide is like, you could put him in like a 2013 Duke uniform and he wouldn't look out of place one bit. I mean, he's a specimen. He's a big time athlete. He rebounded the hell out of the ball today. That was not something I'd seen from him prior. I've seen very little of him because he's redshirted last year. He didn't practice all that much last summer, if at all. But I know one thing that's really important for him is same as Lance Jones. He's going to have to make that weak side 3 when the ball gets moving after Zach Edey gets his touches. He looked really good shooting it today. I don't know what he was. I know he took a couple corner ones. I remember him making one. I remember him missing one. But, from what I've seen in practices this summer and from what everybody says, he's a very effective spot-up shooter. And, this team needs to be a better shooting team. Miles Colvin is an NBA athlete. He's an NBA talent. He's got to know what he's doing. And, especially from a defensive perspective, he's really got to, get caught up there as fast as possible. When I say caught up, I mean, he's just got to learn. He's got to acclimate to structure. He's got to learn the finer points. He's got to really, sort of dedicate himself to that area. I don't know if that's ever something that's been demanded of him, the way it's being demanded of him now. But he's an elite talent, and I think that Purdue should have every reason to get him as many minutes as possible in Europe early in the season and just hasten along his development, kind of incubate his development the best you can, because you need to get the best out of those guys who are really high-end players. preferably at some point during their freshman year.
Yeah.
And I just think it would be in Purdue's short and long-term interest to get him and to get him moving as quickly as possible.
Heidi, 1 for 4 from the field, but 1 for 2 from 3. And of course, that 11 rebounds was a game high. I think the only guy in double digits rebounding, but he does.
Well, those weren't just, those weren't just missed free throws he was rebounding. Those were athletic, physical, contested rebounds. And there's a huge difference between numbers and what you see with your eyes when a guy rebounds. And those were legitimate, contested rebounds.
Yeah.
I've always been a proponent that there should be 2 different statistics. It should be rebounds and contested rebounds. And I don't know, it would be up to the official scorers to do that because, it's such a deceiving number sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. He was impressive, and he definitely looks the part when you watch him as well. Again, Fletcher Lawyer leads in scoring. You see what you usually see out of Fletcher, 3 for 6 from 3. I understand Purdue shot the ball relatively well from 3, 38% from that standpoint. But out of Smith and Lawyer, anything, again, guys that now at least have had a summer, especially Smith, to get ready. And again, they look, everybody's going to be looking at Fletcher Lawyer and seeing, has he gotten bigger? Has he done this, done that? What do you say in those 2 guys and what you saw there?
Well, Fletcher Lawyer, I don't think Purdue collectively, and I don't think anybody collectively likes those balls, those Euro balls. But Fletcher Lawyer doesn't seem to be affected one bit by those balls, because I was at practice last week and he made damn near every shot he took with those balls. And, he looked really good shooting today, 3 for 6, maybe something like that.
Right. That's right. Yep.
But yeah, I mean, it's, he's gonna, they always say, whoever they actually is.
Yeah.
But they always say that, guys make jumps, between year 1 and year 2. And I think that's sort of the overarching story between Smith and Lawyer. But I think also with Lawyer, I'd expect his 3-point percentage to really take a jump this year, because I think he had to adjust to a lot of things in college basketball last season. I think his legs, kind of gave out him on the end. He was banged up a little bit, but I think after a year playing now, I think he probably has a little more savvy to him in terms of understanding what the Big Ten's going to do to him defensively. I think he's probably going to be a little bit more comfortable being open every now and then.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to understand these guys, when they're in high school, they're getting guarded by 2 people all the time. And, if somebody throws a baseball at you from 10 feet away as fast as they can right at your face, right? Under normal circumstances, you can catch a baseball. But when it comes at you that fast and it's that surprising to you, what am I even talking about here?
Well, you're talking about
you understand what I'm saying here? Like, you can do something, but when you're so surprised by how quickly it presents itself, or how advantageous it is to you and the way it presents itself, it's not something you're used to doing. And I think it was as ridiculous as it sounds, but I think there were times last year where he just wasn't used to being open, because he never was in high school.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of some of the nuance that's going to make him a much higher percentage shooter this year. I'd anticipate him shooting the same volume. I mean, he's going to take a lot of threes this year. But I just expect him to be a better all-around player, a more prepared all-around player in terms of knowing what to expect, and just much more productive. And he was pretty damn productive last year. Braden Smith, I expect to, I think it's perfectly reasonable to say that he's got a chance to be a star. He should be a star. And I think this is the year where Purdue says, yes, we have Zach Edey, but we need you to be our I don't want to say second best player, because there's, a lot going on with other people too here, but somebody who's much more assertive as from a scoring perspective and has the ball in their hands to make plays a lot more, which isn't to say Braden Smith didn't last year, but I think he's going to be empowered even more to really put his stamp on every game he plays in.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that period of time is just an extra year of growth is going to help him as well. All right, entertaining day. Anything jumped? I don't know how much you were watching the Alumni game. Not surprising that Frank Kendrick got the first shot of the game. Not surprising. Sasha Stefanovic really was the show in the Alumni game, at least from shooting the basketball. But anybody else jump out at you as you and Carm were sitting there gazing out at basketball, or you just watching them and hoping they're all going to make it up and down the court?
Well, the younger guys should have an advantage, right?
No doubt.
So Stefanovic, who's a year removed from playing professionally overseas,
should be ready. Yeah.
Should be ready. And, I don't think anybody should be surprised that he made all those threes. Ryan Smith did get him back a couple times.
Yeah.
Ryan Smith, who's been out of his Purdue playing career for how long now?
Well, 11 years. 11 years. 11 years. It's hard to believe.
He got a couple off Stefanovic. So there was a little bit of back and forth there between those two. Had some pretty good shooters in the building. Dakota Mathias and Ryan Klein were there too. They didn't play. But obviously Stefanovic, not just still being in his playing prime and, being pretty closely removed from his playing days, but also shooting in a gym he can shoot in every day if he wants right now. Yeah. It's, you don't really take the game too seriously, but that was pretty impressive what Stefanovic did.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive what a lot of people did. Todd Foster getting up and down the floor a couple of times.
Yeah.
With as much abuse as his body has taken over the years, playing and getting thrown off bowls and all this stuff that.
And he's still a noon basketball all-star there too. I understand. Yeah.
Frank was looking spry.
Yeah.
As
72, that's pretty damn good.
I told him in the tunnel.
Yeah.
Expected more rebounds out of him, as I told him, but Hummel's got to pick it up. I did get that. Yeah, we were lamenting. I said, no. Can you still play? And we were kind of kidding. I saw him for about 30 seconds, but yeah, he's a podcast guy now.
He is, and a damn good one, I should say.
Other than that, Lewis Jackson put on a show.
Yeah, glad for Lewis.
Lewis is, very capable of putting on a show against anybody, even as I guess he's got to be 30 something now, right?
Yeah, he's got to be 34, 35. Yeah.
Because he
and Ryan Smith the same age.
Yeah, they were in the same class.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean they're the same age, but they're in the same class.
Pretty close, yeah.
So yeah, that's. I have to admit, there were some people out there I had no idea who they were.
Yeah. Well, when there are guys from my era playing, Tony Ream was one of them. I don't know how this. Obviously Frank was the oldest player out there, I believe. But even guys, Tony was a walk-on and has played in every one of those games. But yeah, it's good. It's good for us old guys to see them out there and see if they can still do it. And the crowd had a good day. It was a fun day to watch some basketball for sure. And they put on a good show.
Grady Eifert put on a show.
Yeah, he looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it was good to see those guys there playing, and again, entertaining basketball is pretty prior to the Boilermakers taking off for Europe. Okay, I do want to get a little bit. You wrote an excellent column. I didn't agree with everything, but I thought it was still very well. Everything you wrote, but as well written.
Debate me. Let's go. Debate me.
I don't want to do that. Well, I just, the whole Washington, Oregon thing, I know, and I want to ask you because you talked to Mike Babinski today as well. I don't know. I guess I don't love the idea, but I also look at it and I did buy totally into what you're saying is what's the end game here? Where's this going to stop? Good question. If Notre Dame, if Virginia, if North Carolina come calling, you can have a 21 team league, maybe. No, but just to talk about, you had a chance to talk to Mike and maybe also another day of thinking about this. in terms of what do we expect. Matt Painter also, if you haven't had a chance to watch the video, he broke down the whole travel schedule as he saw it in his post-game comments to you today, but in typical Matt Painter analytical fashion. But going to be a weird world. We're going to send you out to Eugene and Seattle at the same time, maybe, I guess. Painter talked about travel partners coming back.
Well, what about class?
Yeah, well, that doesn't matter.
Like,
did it matter for you?
Don't they have to go to school?
Well,
I understand there's online classes, but like all of them?
Yeah.
No one has to go to a class.
Well, and then when Painter talked about the fact that they're going to have 2 days of separation too. I mean, you're going to be Wednesday, Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday. If you're out west, is that going to be how it's going to? It's really going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they'll figure it out, and I'm sure coaches and whatnot will have to find places to practice, which they shouldn't really have any hard time doing. I don't think they're going to go to the park, and play against Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes or anything like that. But no, it's a logistical debacle, and that's not important. All that matters is TV, what TV wants, what TV will pay, and what had to have happened here. And is that a tornado siren?
Yeah, the sirens are on, and I'm putting my best weather person ahead, but I'm sure my wife's going to be coming down here shortly to, it's weird how they do it. I think we're good, but I don't want to tell you you're good. So if you want to,
if my window breaks and I get a shot of glass in the head,
you can give me a minute and a half of what Lubinsky said, and
I can give you an hour and a half.
I know.
No, I think Purdue was, Mike's obviously a good soldier for the Big Ten, but I think when you kind of read between the lines of kind of what he said, I think Purdue probably had some real questions here.
Yeah.
It's they ended up voting for it, but I don't know how much I put stock in that because the Big Ten typically tries to make everything unanimous, and that's what it was, as far as I know. It might not have been. I don't know. I can't see how, unless there is a big short-term monetary bump to this, which I don't see how that happens unless TV. It has gone unreported that TV just dropped $40 million more in an escalator clause in the existing contract, which hasn't even kicked in yet.
Right.
I think this is about the renegotiation of a media rights deal that hasn't even taken effect yet. So it's my understanding that Fox or whoever is going to help offset some travel costs, but you took Washington and you took Oregon at basically pennies to the dollar. They're in it basically half shares.
You're right. Quarter shares. Right?
But did you just take them because they're on sale? I think all of us have seen, buy two, get one free, and it has at Walmart or Meijer or Target or whatever. And it's clouded our judgment. And I sort of wonder here if the Big Ten just made an impulse buy here, and Washington and Oregon's best ability was availability. Very consistent with modern recruiting right now is if you're a transfer and you're available, you are 10 times the player you really are in people's eyes. I just don't see what the Big Ten gets out of it. It's not like, look, here's the better point. Were these contested assets? Where were Washington and Oregon going to go? Obviously, you're in this Cold War with the SEC, and that's fine. But the SEC is going to go after the Southeast before they're going to go up to, freaking Canada to go get people. Washington and Oregon had nowhere to go. You just threw them a lifeline, which is the good humanitarian thing to do, but it's bad business. It may not be the best business. And I just, unless you're making a ton more money here in the short term, and I've yet to see anything reported or been told anything on or off the record to suggest that's the case, what are you doing here? You're taking on a whole lot of hassle You're making your league even more, competitively stifling. Your path to the playoff for some of these people is now a little bit harder. That it also begs the question of what do Oregon and Washington get out of this other than money? Competitively, they could have stayed where they were, kind of resurrected the Pac-12, kept that playoff bid until the Big Ten and SEC take it away. And they could have made the playoff very easily by, winning a shell of a conference. I don't know. I mean, these aren't basketball decisions, obviously, but I don't think this is good for basketball. I don't think it's good for any sport other than, theoretically football. But, we're going to see here how this works for football. It's all TV. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters but what TV wants. And I'm guessing that, that wall-to-wall Saturday morning to morning, TV docket of national games was probably something somebody just said, hey, we want that. And I don't know. We'll kind of see how it goes. I just don't see the point. Well, I don't see the urgency. I don't see any of it.
I think USC and UCLA, obviously gives them someone to play in the same sandbox.
Right. But USC and UCLA left the Pac-12 if they wanted to keep playing Oregon and Washington.
No, understood.
But
I think the reality, and again, and this can be laughable, and I've already been laughed at about this by my own family members, but this wonderful thing called the AAU and academics. Okay, and I know it doesn't mean it. I know it's all about. I buy that it's all about TV money or all about the land grab to some extent, but Oregon and Washington do at least fit that in the Big Ten's profile. But does that matter anymore? Less and less each day. So it'll be interesting. I do think from a branding standpoint, it does become convoluted, and you've got 18 teams. You're going to have 3 6-team leagues. What are you going to have? Divisions. Are you going to go back to divisions? All those kinds of questions. I'm sure we'll be scratching our head watching it, and probably have more news on Monday and Tuesday. Who knows what could be next on this?
What do you think Ohio State thinks of this?
Yeah.
Like, in your league, who are the people that you really have to keep happy? Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, on down the line. What do you think Ohio State thinks of this? It's like, why would Ohio State want Oregon and Washington in the Big Ten?
Yeah. And again, at this current thing, because you're right, there's nothing to suggest that the pie got bigger on the next 6 years or whatever, however long the TV deal is. And part of the reason why they got smaller shares. Yeah, good question. That again, the Big Ten, like you said, I think you're correct on the whole notion that the Big Ten will not speak bad of decisions that have already been made. So you're going to be hard to find out a lot of that stuff of, who. There's been some reporting about gnashing of teeth among the league members. Yeah. We'll see. Yeah,
well, in terms of the reduced shares, hey, great. If Oregon and Washington are coming in at 50% discounts, great. But unless a bunch more money came into the league now,
right. You're going to take
still money everybody else isn't getting.
That is correct.
I think this stuff's still being worked out. So I think we're talking about things before the schools themselves even know what's going on. So
I think it was a fascinating, because even yesterday on Friday, heard there in the morning that, it sounds like Washington and Washington and Oregon may stay put, and then things change. There was some, I find it interesting that there had been a lot of that the situation was as fluid as they said, but maybe it was down the stretch. I don't know.
Well, I am telling you this for a fact. This is fact. This is triple sourced now from 2 different schools. Under Kevin Warren, the Big Ten ran the numbers on Washington and Oregon and decided against it. They said the money just didn't make sense. So something here in the last 72 hours, other than panic, other than, buying candy at the hardware store.
I love that analogy. Yeah.
Happened. And at some point in time, when somebody does an oral history of Washington and Oregon moving to the Big Ten, I'm sure we'll get more information on what exactly happened. But right now, it just doesn't add up.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense. You're at 18 teams now. we all know they're not stopping at 18. Nobody's stopping ever, probably until every major football program in the country is either in the Big Ten or SEC. There are some assets out there that make you better immediately, and now you've taken two more teams here that fill two spots against what at some point there's got to be a hard number. I know that runs counter to what I just said about this will never stop, but what happens one day if Notre Dame, wants to come? Now you need an even number with Notre Dame. You got to take somebody else. Now you're at 20. And then what happens if the ACC falls apart? You could go grab 6 prominent programs like that. You've just kind of handcuffed yourself here. I just don't understand why, and I don't understand why now.
Yeah.
But that's just me. I mean,
we're all pondering, that's for sure, on the future of all this. Has been muddied at best. So, all right, we're gonna put this fine simulcast to bed, so to speak. I want to thank Tom Dienhart in the front end, Brian Neubert, and want to remind folks that you can become a member if you like these podcasts. Brian Neubert and Tom Dienhart do a whale of job putting great content on goldenblack.com. Become a member while you're at it. You can also join the Boilermaker Alliance if you care to do that. You can get Gold and Black as part of that as well. But give that some thought because the website is well worth reviewing on a daily basis. So, all right, guys, as in Brian, thanks so much. Thank the Union Club Hotel also for sponsoring this, 811 Bistro, Boiler Up Bar. We appreciate all that they do as well. And we'll see you. We're probably going to be just about every week now that we're into training camp as we head into the 2023 football season. Have a great rest of your weekend, all, or whenever you get a chance to listen/watch this. So we appreciate you taking the time to do so. Have a great week. Thanks.